Welcome to the Leadership Unveiled, the podcast series that explores the minds and journeys of the pioneering leaders, entrepreneurs shaping up the business world. I'm your host, Neha Jagnani, and today's conversation takes us into this fascinating world of logistics, supply chains, technology, and leadership. Joining us today is Professor Kaushik Das, Professor of Practice at Gati Shakti Vishwavidyalaya and co-founder and CEO of Androrithm Private Limited. He's a former Air Force commander in Indian Air Force. Professor Das brings over 3 decades of distinguished experience in logistics, supply chain management, and operational leadership. During his tenure with the Indian Air Force, he held several key leadership roles and played an active part in supporting major operations, while also spearheading transformational initiatives in digital supply chains, AI-enabled systems, inventory management, and logistics modernization. He was instrumental in advancing technology-driven logistics frameworks and contributing to large-scale supply chain transformation projects. Professor Das, it's a pleasure having you today.
Thank you so much, Neha. Thanks for introducing me the way you did. And thanks for inviting me to this podcast because these are incredible and exciting times to be in logistics and supply chain, where I see a convergence of a lot of different things towards this domain. I see a convergence not only of AI, which everybody talks, but I also talk about sustainability, geopolitics, deep tech, and of course, a nation building approach to the whole thing here. So, somebody who has seen this whole journey through different lenses, right? A military lens, a thing from the national space through the PM Gati Shakti initiative, and also right now through the academic prism into how the next generation workforce comes and arrives. It's an exciting time to be here to learn, to contribute, and maybe towards the ultimate aim of Vikshit Bharat. Over to you.
Oh, thank you so much, sir. Looking forward to this exciting podcast. So, to begin with, Professor Das, my first question is based on your extensive experience in logistics and supply chain management, what are the biggest changes that you have witnessed in this sector over the years?
You know, Neha, what is very interesting is I think today when somebody talks about logistics and supply chain, gone are the days when you visualize a Godam or a back office, right? It is now moved from a cost center, from actually a pure cost center into a profit center. Now, if I have to tell you this story, and I have been a part of this journey in my own little capacity, it's an exciting story to be told, especially in the context of, I can talk to you as a flashback, and if I take myself back to the early 90s or 80s when I joined my services, and I close my eyes and I try to see how was my warehouse and how was my equipment depot looking. It does not give me a very fancy story because it was a manual, out and out manual world. It was where we had to physically do things. We used to actually be on dump of papers and forms in so many copies, trying to fill those up and try to send it all across the country to see who it reaches, and hope like hell it reaches the others. We were sitting on dozens of registers where we are writing down things to actually get the stock and get the decision making. By no means they were efficient. By no means a lot had to be done, right? We were struggling to maybe do things in time. And being in Air Force, where it's a very fast-paced organization, and I'm very sure it is there in the earlier corporate aspects also, that we actually had to struggle with time and see that the right item is positioned at the right time. And then, and if that was the day, and then the computers chipped in slowly but steadily. That made the first generation of change because we started moving from manual to semi-automation to automation. I've been very fortunate to see this journey because initially I used to dabble with MIS, management information systems, and then move to ERP systems, right? The ERP systems now started taking a very different paradigm and dimension because now you got visibility across. Now everybody started talking about transparency and a change in the way the whole thing would be working. Everybody's saying, okay, there is an opportunity to see and decide based on an information which is maybe not guess, but perhaps something which is more current and not stale, because the earlier genre had a problem of stale data, had a problem of incorrect data coming across, and a lot of time and manual intensive world. Now that continued and continues today in generation after generation, because the ERPs now are getting connected to other systems, right? Warehouse management systems, transportation management systems, IoTs and robotics, which we'll discuss maybe as we move here. But while these were going on, we need to see the global context where we found some more things happening. Suddenly, somebody in the organization of Toyota told, "Okay, why should we manufacture everything?" We have read in macroeconomics that try to get manufacture as little as possible and try to get your supply chain from other countries where you can actually manufacture it cheap. So this whole tagline came just in time, and everybody in the world started following because it made business sense. It moved logistics and supply chain from profit to cost, from cost to profit center. Balance sheets were looking good, and you didn't have, and had very little of stock and inventory, which was considered evil. But there was a question to be asked, which everybody forgot, that you didn't have buffer. Do you have shock absorption capability? Do you have a plan B should things go wrong? And if you historically move from early days to today's, supply chain always has been hit hard by major disruptions. One of them being COVID, which we all know. And it's actually exposed the vulnerability and the criticality of supply chain and perhaps catapulted it in a wrong way to a position of fame, because everybody now in the company understands that my EBITDA will be dependent on my logistic costs. So now then what happens is the whole thing now changes to say that, okay, I will not do, offshoring, but I'll get the pendulum back to, nearshoring. I'll start keeping some buffer. I start keeping some alternate. I'll see more suppliers across different continents so that I don't have a stock out. I don't have a supply outage. This is true as much as we speak today with the global conditions and geopolitical conditions, which all of us know how it has affected the crude supply chain today, right?
Right.
Now, while this was happening, the technology space was, I saw moving very, very fast. So now what happens? AI kicks in, blockchain kicks in, AI enabled systems kick in, and decision making moves into absolutely different parameter. So what is so very important to see that today, it has started challenging the human leadership aspects, right? It has started challenging the new generation supply chain, but you have everything together today available. But how the world pans out, because you now have a problem of carbon emission, you have a problem of huge energy needs, and you have a problem of huge amount of data from which you need to serve and make sure that the human in the loop is always, able to decide on those. It's been a really exciting journey, and I'm very sure the new generation will take it to the new levels. I've seen it all, and I'm actually, that's why I want to, continuously engage with people to see how the whole thing takes shape in the future.
Sure, sure. Beautifully put. Clearly, logistics and supply chain management has evolved over the year from cost centers to profit centers, as you rightly said, out and out manual work to semi-automation, then automation, ERP systems coming in. But transparency, as you rightly said, still remains the key. It's very, very important. Absorption capacity actually also has evolved given the disruptions and changes that are happening externally. Technology continues to move fast, so that also affects the human factor, the decision making ability in this particular sector. So, thank you so much for beautifully putting it together, sir. My next question, Professor Das, is how can technology and AI help organizations build more resilient and efficient supply chain systems?
You see, what we need to very clearly understand that, and this has gone in the mind of a lot of people, that technology is not going to replace the supply chain manager or the leader, right? Technology is definitely going to augment it. And the new generation of leaders who would like to use this would have to be very mindful of the fact that not only you have to use, or we have to use our human intelligence, but it has to be augmented by a tech intelligence, right? So a tech plus human is what is our way ahead. Now, in your first, when we had discussed about the evolution, we've already seen we are sitting on a fantastic space to get it ahead. Now, you just think of how the whole thing pans out today and how technology helps us in anything and everything. There's a business which wants to be started at a particular place, right? The first thing is, where do I site my business? Where do I keep my warehouse? How is my supply chain? What are my routes? And everything which is to be required. This is a decision which used to take years for us to actually come to. And we used to have applications and try to get the government, the semi-government spaces, and try to, think like hell in a finite time, this all comes. Today, we have a portal of, the Gati Shakti portal that we talk. We have unified logistics interface portal and logistics data bank. Now, what are they doing? Once you're allowing the industry to get and log in there, you can actually site your warehouse. You can site your manufacturing center. Now, after you, how do you site? Okay, through the geo AI vector raster, the data of satellite, you can now see what are the suppliers which, in the near vicinities. What is the isochronous area where our demand and other things can move? How fast can we do route optimization? All of these are using geo AI solutions. So what happens? That whole time gets compressed into maybe a 6 months or 1 year for me to kickstart my whole business and also see how my business is sustainable in a long-term place. Because I shouldn't be going into a place where I have issues in terms of water connectivity, electricity, and so many energy connectivity issues. So it's a multidisciplinary decisions where data has to converge at the click of a particular button, and you need to decide. You are able to decide now. Now that you started your business, what is your next course? Okay, I need to send it to my customer, right? You now know these are the worlds of quick commerce, right? I'm not naming these quick commerce giants, but this is the reality. And if you have to deliver something between 15 and 10 minutes, 15 minutes, or half an hour, you need to see how your route optimization platform and your entire aspects of last mile connectivity, multimodal connectivity all falls in place, right? That's again going to be technology enabled for us to see, can I make it more efficient? Can my transportation costs be reduced? And can I make sure that at the cost of customer satisfaction, at the cost of anything, we were able to deliver it on time? Now, the third part. I would like to know how my customers would want to demand. I would like to know how he or she, what are her habits in terms of consumption of the product that I'm in. That's where again AI is chipping in big time, because it is now telling us, okay, I can actually sense what would be the demand, be it seasonal, be it cyclical, or be it abrupt in entire sense. So you now can actually delve deep into AI techniques. As I told you some time back, transparency, accuracy, and trust is very important. This technology helps you. So suppose I, for example, we are, sourcing it from globally from all different places of the world. We may not physically be going there to actually check it, whether it is the trace history is correct, whether it is an authentic spare part, whether something in terms of costing is okay or not. The entire thing, if it goes in an Ethereum blockchain or an equivalent platform of a blockchain, a lot of things are sorted out, right? So now you see across the spectrum, even in maintaining parts which we are there, we are moving from earlier reactive to prescriptive. That means reactive to predictive to prescriptive maintenance. All of them through digital twin space is fantastically possible through AI and its relevant in deep tech. I
Sure.
hope it answers part of your query.
Absolutely. Beautifully started when you said that technology is not here to replace, but it will augment. And to do that, you have to have that mindset. The human touch, while it is very, very important, it is very important to understand the technology and use it as you progress. And great examples there as how things have progressed and how things have become easy with the usage of technology, be it identifying the factors that earlier used to take a lot of time to make a decision on when you are starting a venture, to actually understand the patterns of your customers and how things will pan out once you establish. So AI chipping in makes it very, very easy in today's times. So thank you so much. My next question, Professor Das, is what are the key leadership qualities required to manage logistics operations in high responsibility environments?
This is very close to my heart, because having migrated from military, which defines trust and discipline, to the space of the corporate as well as in the academia, I realize this is going to define the next generation supply chain managers. Now, when I look at a leader in in this space, there are a lot of things that to be and requires to be falling in place. Yes, technology will help, but we need to harness it for situational awareness, right? Your understanding, because there's so many parameters the way a business goes. Or suppose we are waging a war, or we are fighting something in the armed forces. There is a tremendous requirement of near real-time situational awareness. Because if this situational awareness is a maze, then a leader has to actually play blind and take a lot of guesstimates. But if that is a leader who is enabled through technology, is able to use the technology for situational awareness, but not blindly trusting it, using his human wisdom over it, I think that would be fantastic. The other day I was reading, and everybody I think nowadays are trying to see, is my job still secure now that, and now that the entire space is invaded by AI. And I was very keenly reading the book written on Open to Work by Roslansky, right, the LinkedIn head, and so nicely crafted to say that please don't no longer look at leadership as a title, right? Look at it as what you do, what are the crafts that you're good at, and if you can move out from maybe what wasn't a structured organizational chart to maybe something more collaborative in nature. Now, just look at what a supply chain manager does. For his or her efficiency, he has to continuously speak to the finance counterparts, who is also a part, incidentally, of the supply chain thing. For supply chain finance or any sort of finance, he has to engage the suppliers at any point of time, because all of them are a part of this chain. He has to engage the marketing team to make sure that it is being done. He has to engage the HR team to make sure that the people who are coming are in the industry ready space for them to take it on, and a whole of other things that he needs to do. Now, if he has to do that, then he has to be mindful of the fact that adaptability is super important, right? And instead of giving a title to a work, crafting a what do you do, what are the new skill sets which people have to do, and which so that they can move out right from negotiation to understanding finance to actually doing what a warehouse management system or a transportation management system doing, to understanding the math. The entire sphere has to be very well understood, right? But the last part, which I will like to tell you, is super important is discipline, trust, and that's something that I think is non-negotiable. In recent times, I'd just written through the Gati Shakti University publications a sort of book on lead beyond limits, and I've also tried to pen down my thoughts out here. That more so with so much of data, so much of information explosion, and so much of complexity, we need to keep that discipline, the trust in place. And when we say it of trust, the emotional quotient in the leadership part, the emotional bank part of it, which Stephen Covey used to talk, that we need not talk about withdrawal, but depositing our strengths into that whole space, is perhaps super important in the days to come.
Sure, sure. Thank you so much. So, harnessing technology for situational awareness, crafting what you're good at, understanding it basically. A lot of things have moved from a structured format to a more collaborative approach for a leader to work best in today's environment and to create that culture where people can thrive. Um, Adaptability, as you rightly said, is very, very important. Discipline, trust being non negotiable, and EQ, last but not the least, plays a critical role in today's times. So, thank you so much. My next question, Professor Das, is in your view, how can India strengthen its logistics ecosystem to support future growth and operational readiness?
Thank you for asking me this question, because this is exactly what I'm currently doing, and I'm very, very upbeat about the whole thing.
Sure.
You see, some time back, uh, when the think tank of India understood that if India has to get into this, gamut of a developed nation or a Vikshit Bharat by 2047, the first and foremost thing that has to be done is, of course, of the logistics cost, which is considered as maybe a waste in the whole sphere of things, from existing 14% or above to a much lesser figure of 7 to 8%. Now, towards that, you see, we had to put in place something called a national logistics policy. And what did it think of? That first and foremost, how do you reduce your logistics and supply chain cost? Is you need infrastructure for the entire turnaround time, be it in terms of bridges, roads, or be it in warehouses, or be it in terms of anything which is related to this whole supply chain ecosystem. So there's a huge push, and we are all very proud as Indians to see that you today not only have dedicated freight corridors, you're talking about multimodal logistics park, and you're now talking about a hub and spoke system so that you are able to create that entire ecosystem on infrastructure where moving from place A to place B, the time is reduced by half or even less. Right. We today are talking about bullet trains. We're talking about high speed rail. We are talking about roadways where, with maybe energy efficient trucks. And also we are talking about a lot of warehousing at places where we can actually use it for outsourcing as well as insourcing.
Sure.
Now, the first underneath layer was, of course, the infra. But by infra, it will not be it just be entirely possible. So you had to had a digital overlay over it because that will integrate all the infra together because they're all parts, different parts of the same system. And that is where an effort had come to create something called PM Gati Shakti portal, right? The PM Gati Shakti portal is actually now has mapped the entire space of India. And for it has got some 1300 layers, which each layer is having data of everything that you talk about supply chain and logistics, right? You talk about warehouse, you talk about customers, you talk about flood, you talk about the weather, and all of these, when you synthesize, you get a big picture in terms of how the whole thing is moving. That is getting expanded to ULIP, that is Unified Logistics Interface. So the corporates are also are getting a help in using, while Gati Shakti portal is for the government to speed up. And I was talking to you about how to set up a warehouse and all. So today the decision making is at the click of a button. And then third is export import because you're now sending things abroad, you're exporting, you're also importing. You would also like to have a lot of analogous real-time data about how these things are and when would it arrive and when would it go to the destination. And that's by a logistics digital platform.
Sure.
Now you see how the national level integration is going to happen. It is just the beginning, and I am very sure that the way we are moving, it'll be a matter of time that we would be able to reduce it beyond what is there, especially in the developed countries, and get the whole act together in making this whole AI driven, deep tech driven, technology and infrastructure driven logistics for the benefit of the nation.
Sure, sure. Thank you so much. Logistics costs are really, mounting, and to be able to get under that number, it's very, very important that you need infrastructure for that. You need digital overlay. The PM Gati Shakti portal, as you rightly said, it is helping mapping the layers of these initiatives, the data to make easy, efficient decisions well in time. So, thank you so much, sir. This brings us to the last question for this segment, sir, which is what key lessons from your professional journey would you like to share with young professionals aspiring to build careers in logistics and supply chain management?
Okay. See, currently I'm in that role, right? I am now training young BTechs, MTechs, and PhDs and working professionals as a part of Gati Shakti University's mandate. It's a think tank as well as perhaps the only central university by a government mandate for logistics and supply chain. So when I see them in hordes coming and when I am interacting with them, I am now getting a fantastic idea of what are the expectations, cross-sectional expectations of a young student in the BTech who is aspiring to become a supply chain professional, a person who has done maybe 1 to 2 years and he's a working professional wants to upgrade his skills, and somebody who is actually deep into algorithms who's also wanting to do his research in these sort of fields.
Sure,
I mean, I'm really blessed to see a convergence or a sort of differing requirements that are coming out from one.
sure,
What I do is when I sit across with them, and each has got a different role or different, advice which I would like to give. The young generation has to see it's a no-brainer that they have been born with technology, right? They are born with AI, they are born with everything. But the problem is they are not developing their wisdom. They're not developing their human override over the tech. Whether they're developing or not, it is subject to a question. Some may be doing it, but there is an issue there because you cannot blindly trust the AI, for it can hallucinate and it can hallucinate your own thoughts. So when I speak to them, the first thing is they should not be in the zone of a linear, idea of the technology being a solution or a panacea of all evils. They should also make sure that they work towards building character. That's something that I use as a tagline. You have to start building character. You have to start considering yourself as a citizen of this country to see what is your contribution towards Vikshit Bharat. And here, instead of having a very straitjacketed idea of supply chain as a job or a title, which I was talking some time back, look at it as a space where you need to know what are the crafts required to do it. So you develop those crafts, as also you get a tinge of innovation and entrepreneurship in this whole stuff, because this is an area which will only be thriving by entrepreneurship, because at every space there's a huge quantum of opportunity for these young guys to actually create their own companies and plugging the loopholes. What is quick commerce that you're seeing today is a supply chain innovation which has changed our whole way, right? What you're seeing in these spaces of IoT and in the spaces of the way you are now paying is all actually a supply chain aspects that is working on, right? They need to learn to adapt. They need to use tech, but don't blindly trust on that, is what I talk to the young guys. The guys who are in the mid segment, I am talking about how they can, and some of them I've seen are very averse to usage of technology. Yes, we all have seen the LLM and the latest models which are there, but some of them are very inefficiently using them because they have to learn how to use their first draft, their first thought, maybe with an AI augmented thought, and then start using their own thought on that and add to the innovation space that I'm talking about. The third, the guys who are into deep research definitely have to go beyond just publishing papers, but connect to the industry to see what are the problems that the industry is throwing at them, and then do the research which can be productized into something which is a gain for India, not merely sitting across and creating a paper which is to be published in some very reputed journals, right? That's something which I suppose India has missed out for a very long time. But like we out here in the universities also are very focused that let's be industry driven and let's be innovation led.
Sure, sure. Thank you so much. So many takeaways here. Some professional journey related experiences that you would like to, share with the aspiring professionals are they should not have a linear idea of how technology will pan out. They have to build the character. Understanding what crafts is required to getting into the space of logistics and supply chain. Entrepreneurship and business acumen is very, very important in today's times. Uh, Essentially how to adapt and how to use the technology efficiently is what people should really work on. And last but not the least, for people who are doing some deep research, they should connect with the industry more to understand, it deeply. So thank you so much. This brings us to the end of this segment, Professor Das. Now we'll just switch gears and move to this quick rapid fire round. This activity is just to get to know you a little bit better. So I'll post some questions and you can rapidly answer those. And, looking forward to this. So are you ready?
Yep.
Okay. One word that best describes your leadership style.
Influence without authority.
Okay. Early bird or a night owl?
Yeah, I'm a night owl.
Okay. A technology trend that excites you the most.
Digital twins.
Okay. One leadership lessons the Indian Air Force taught you.
Discipline, trust.
Okay. A book that has influenced your thinking.
How the world ran out of everything. Peter Goodman during COVID times. And that's the seminal book, I think, on supply chain management.
Okay. Okay. One skill every supply chain professional should master.
Adaptability to technology.
Sure. AI powered systems or human intuition.
AI-powered system with an overlay of human intuition.
Okay. One habit that helps you stay productive.
Planning time management.
Okay. If not logistics, what career would you have pursued?
I wouldn't have pursued any other career, military and logistics.
Okay. Last one. One piece of advice you would give to your younger self.
That's something that I thought I still was still young, but yes, I would still want to say that, keep learning.
Sure, sure. Beautiful, sir. Thank you so much. That was quick and sharp. Thank you so much, Professor Das, for sharing your insights today. Your insights on technology, logistics, and supply chain management has truly added so much value to this conversation and was very enlightening. It was my pleasure to host you in this conversation today. So, thank you so much for your insights and time today.
Thank you. Jai Hind.
Jai Hind, sir. Thank you.